Welcome to Integration Nation. For Allison Sullivan's Integrative Health Team, I'm Dee Daniels. I walked in today and I thought, is Allison building a house, remodeling a house? I don't know. She's got the tools out, the wood out. There's a lot going on here.
A lot going on here because it's all about support beams.
So we're building today, remodeling today, looking at the foundation of things.
Yes, if the boundaries episode is a cousin to the kind and nice episode, this support beams episode is a cousin to the self-care episode.
Oh, wow, yeah.
Support beams and the concept of support beams are near and dear to my heart. They are, when you think of a house, I'm not a general contractor, so this is probably going to be a little messy of a metaphor. It'll be good enough, though. Support beams are the central feature of a structure. They support the floor, the ceiling, and the walls.
Right.
They support it all. So the support beams that I'm talking about are support beams in our lives as people throughout our lives, and how vital they are to not only our happiness, but to every aspect of our functioning, to our very well-being. Support beams are that impactful.
This is going to be a powerful episode, and you're going to want to stay locked in the whole time. I want to first mention your office is in beautiful downtown Fredericksburg, and you have so many fantastic workshops that people can attend if they're local, and really just find an extension to so many of the services that you have. I mean, it's just a beautiful extension, and a lot of them are free services and free workshops, so definitely check out the website and sign up for some of these.
Yes, and of course, the podcast is free. We have a free aromatherapy workshop every month where we talk about different topics and introduce people to different aspects of aromatherapy. It's a really wonderful complementary treatment for all of the stuff that we do here. We have meditation workshops, we have mindfulness workshops, we have nutrition workshops, we have yoga workshops, and yes, those are all geared for people who live in the region. We are considering doing some online workshops and expanding into that. So pay attention to all of the information surrounding that. And the best way to do that, of course, is to subscribe to our news and events newsletter, which comes out monthly.
Can I say about the newsletter? I love the newsletter so much.
What do you love about it?
You address everyone personally in the newsletter.
I do.
And you share something all the time in the newsletter that is so relatable to maybe something that's going on in your day or something that's going on in your world that all of us could relate to. And it's a really nice newsletter that comes from a friend.
Thank you for that.
It feels really good. And there's some great information packed in there too.
Thank you for that. We tried to keep the newsletter simple because we don't want to clutter people's inboxes. So we do try and include something personal and then just the nuts and bolts of what's going on here. And when we do schedule something and the tickets come live for that, we send that out to our subscriber list first because seating is limited in our office suite. So we want the people that are subscribing to hear about it first. So you really want to consider doing that. It's as easy as going to our website, allisonsintegrativehealth.org. You'll see the buttons all over the website that say subscribe.
It's a really easy website to navigate, and you will find all of that. But definitely sign up for the newsletter and get that in your email because that will tell you what's going on and sort of map out the month for you. So
map out the month.
Yeah, another bumper sticker. So you can know what's happening and what you want to sign up for in plenty of time.
Absolutely.
Now, we're very excited about, of course, all of the people downloading the podcast. So if you love the podcast, give a 5-star rating and a review. And of course, if you have questions, you can email those to Allison anytime. We likely will highlight that in our Q&A section at the end of each episode.
Yes, unless, of course, you don't want us to use your name and don't want us to highlight it, then, of course, we will respect that, and I will do my best to respond to you with answers to your comments and questions anonymously. So please do reach out. We are all about building community, and we want to be a support beam in your life and the lives of those around you. So please reach out to us share the podcast with all of those that you know and love so that we can continue to spread the word and educate people about the importance and effectiveness of integrative mental health.
Let's talk about support beams. This is a really big topic, and I know has so much meaning to you and, well, to all of us. But I know you have some great personal moments that you have really seen how support beams in your life are so important.
They're vital. They're vital, and the research is really clear on that we need support, and oftentimes support in some kind of relationship to thrive in this life. And none of us are an island, no matter how self-made we are, how self-sufficient we are. In the deepest part of our biology, we are wired for connection. And so that's what support beams allow us to do. They allow us to create the inner structures in our house, if you will, that we want, that feel good. And they also allow us to remodel and expand our houses when we feel like that's the next right thing to do. Without it, we're not going to really go very far. We're going to spin our wheels quite a bit. And over time, it leads to a sense of isolation. And a chronic sense of isolation is a really big risk factor for chronic mental health issues. And we do not want that. We do not want that. So talking frankly about this notion of support beams is really central to our health.
So you mentioned growing and expanding, and that's not the only time you need support beams, but that is certainly a time when you realize whether they're strong or not.
Absolutely. So when you're growing and expanding, that's when you find out, are there cracks in the support beams that I have? Do I need more support beams? Do I need to put more support beams in place to support the extra structure that I'm building and creating? And so, I guess that begs the question, what are support beams? Many of you listening may be asking, okay, well, I hear you, support beams, but what are support beams? What are they? So I wish I had a simple answer for that. I think it boils down to support beams can be almost anything. We just have to be clear that they're in our lives for support. A lot of times people are fortunate enough to have, does everybody hear the train going by?
We love it when the train goes by.
I love it when the train goes by. It's the whole reason, not the whole reason, a big part of why I decided to lease this office space. But back to the support beams, a lot of people do benefit from having supportive relationships in their lives. And that can be a support beam because it fosters a sense of community. It fosters a sense of belonging. It's something that is very literally supporting the dynamic process of how you go through this life with all of the twists and turns. It's the people that are witnessing your life, the people that are on the sidelines cheering you, the people that are picking you up when you fall. Those are the relationships that are support beams. Support beams can also be belief systems. This is where people who have a spiritual belief system or a religious belief system, they often describe those things as a support beam in their lives. Another support beam can be our relationship with ourselves. And what I mean by that is our sense of identity, how we see ourselves, and how we see ourselves in relationship to the world at large. Do we have a place in our hearts?
And how we're supporting ourselves in moments of growth and risk and expansion and scary things. That's an important relationship. That's an important support beam.
Yes. It's why I wanted to take you up on your really great idea of putting a bench in our podcast logo. Because that bench signifies, for me, it's an image of a support beam. Because when I think about that bench, I think about what you and I talk about so often of how we need to sit with ourselves as if we were sitting with a cherished friend on a bench. So yes, in that way, our relationship with ourselves can be a support beam.
I'm thinking about something that happened not that long ago, and how grateful I am that you are a support beam in my life.
Aw.
And I'm thinking about, I got a phone call one day when you and I were scheduled to do something, and we were sitting there about to start doing a show that we were taping, and I got a phone call that my mom had something going on health-wise that was very scary, that could have been cancer, that no one knew where that was going to go. And in that moment, I literally fell apart. I literally just fell apart. And you were a fantastic support beam in my life through that process and in that moment. And I think that's such an important relationship to have, like when you're to know who that support beam is for you in the moment.
In the moment, yes. And to trust that there's probably going to be support there outside of you, but even if there's not support there outside of you, you can find a way to be a support beam to yourself if you have to in that moment. Because we all need support. So, also let me say, I was honored to be able to be there for you. I think that as a therapist, therapists are natural support beams for people.
True.
That's how we show up. And so we show up in the critical points of people's lives a lot of times. I'd like to see the culture change so that we show up at all points of people's lives.
Sure.
But, that's yet to be. So at critical junctures, people show up at therapists. And so we, I think as a profession, are well suited to being support beams in people's lives. And that also, leads to another aspect of this, that sometimes support beams are temporary. Sometimes they are there and then they're not there. But we also need to talk about this sense of sometimes people can't find or don't recognize or really don't have support beams. So I think it's important to really talk about that too, because some of you who are listening may feel like you are the support beam in people's lives and don't have adequate support beams in your life. I know that has been a theme in my life from time to time. And so I know I'm not alone in that. So we need to talk about that aspect too. What do people do when they recognize, wait a minute, I can't really see the support that I'm thinking I need, or I know I don't have the support that I need. What do you do then?
I remember many times in my life where I had those moments where I felt like there wasn't any support beam around. And I had to lean on my own support within myself, but I also found some things that weren't people. And I know that you also found some of that in your journey too. But I found in a particular time that I was going through, I found running as a thing that I did for a little while.
Ooh,
and
me too.
I needed it.
Me
and
too.
I used it. And it was everything for me. And another time it was reading certain books. It just depends. Sometimes you're in that moment where you look around and you're like,
I got nothing.
I don't have anybody.
I got nothing.
Hello, and your voice is echoing off
hello.
Yes.
Yeah, and that's really, this is, I think, the most important part of this podcast episode is to address this very real thing for people. I've been there too, but that's probably one of the reasons books and music are so near and dear to me, because in those times in my life where support beams have been lacking, books were always there. There were role models to find in books. There was hope to find in books. There was solutions. There were funny anecdotes. There was a link. There was a link to possibility in books, and the same in music. And I think now that exists for people in podcasts. I think, I wonder sometimes if that's not part of the explosive growth in podcasts, especially education-based podcasts, is that support beam of, I can learn and I can connect and I can figure something out. Something is there for me to tune into.
Oh, I'm sure of it. I'm sure that is a big reason things are exploding in the podcast arena. What a great way to know that you can, in the quiet of your home, in the quiet of your car, while you're washing dishes, while you're doing whatever, running to the store, that you can have a trusted support beam.
Yes.
Right there,
Right
in
there.
your car or in your house. You can have it right there.
Right there. And so this is where I think this is a cousin to the self-care episode, because we were really talking in that episode about people starting where they are. Instead of saying, I can't because I don't have a ton of money and I don't have the flexibility to take spa weekends and retreats and things like that. And so this episode is similar in that way. You know, their support is there, just maybe in some pretty atypical ways. And I was really thinking about this morning in a very soulful way, because we have such a wonderful community in Fredericksburg for so many reasons. And a new aspect of that I've been enjoying is an organization called Mindful Mornings. It's a national organization, and a woman named Janet Sullivan brought it here to Fredericksburg. So once a month, people gather and listen to a speaker on a topic. So this morning's was the executive director of an organization here in Fredericksburg that assists homelessness and seeks to help people who experience chronic homelessness. And what the speaker ended up talking about essentially, though, was that homelessness is more than a lack of a house. It's really about, do we have a place to belong?
That's powerful.
I mean, really, everyone listening, just think about that. Do I have a place to belong? And that really does start inside of ourselves. Do I deeply belong to myself, first of all? Do I deeply and lovingly belong to myself? And if not, what can I do to put some support beams in place to create that kind of relationship and belonging with myself? And then, do I have a place to belong outside of myself? And do I have support in that? Because when people end up, in the strictest sense of the word, homeless, it's because there's no more support beams. Mm-hmm. The support beams are gone. And so, however we want to look at that idea, that sense of homelessness, it is at its foundation about where's the support.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's so true. That's so powerful. Tying that to its truest form of really finding a place to belong. That's so powerful.
Yes. And so what we do here, obviously, professionally, and what I try to do in my own personal life is to really not minimize that, because it's uncomfortable to talk about. If people were in the office with us now listening, I mean, there's a palpable energy as we're talking about this. Mm-hmm. It's not, I mean, it's a lot to think about. It's big to think about. And it's uncomfortable to think about sometimes.
It's heavy, yeah.
It's really heavy, especially if you have to be honest with yourself about, I really, I don't think I have the support I need. I think it's essential, though, because once we tell ourselves that truth, if that's our situation, then it opens us up to finding it. And we really deserve it, and we really need it. And it really is there. We have to just open up to the notion that maybe we don't have what we thought we had, to be able to recognize it and reach out and risk asking for it.
I'm thinking about some of the isolated examples that I've seen in my life, and I know that you've certainly seen in here with some of your clients. I'm thinking about many people that I know that have gone through a divorce. Mm-hmm. And let's just say that can be extremely isolating. You can be in a situation where it was a healthy choice for you to get a divorce and go in a different direction in your life. And you could find all of a sudden that you don't have any support beams around you in that process, because maybe they disagreed with you getting that divorce, or maybe they disagreed with how you handled it or how you are handling it. That can be a very lonely situation.
Absolutely. And And that is what keeps a lot of people actually in abusive relationships, because there is no recognition or access to support beams, even support beams within the institutions in our community. So that's a really important aspect of this. And that's about an identity shift. If we're gonna consider a shift that large in our lives, we need some kind of support beam. And it starts within ourselves by saying, I deserve to support myself. And even opening up to this idea, I deserve to support myself in thinking about this. And I deserve to support myself in finding something that supports me, whether that's my belief in some kind of spiritual system, or some kind of universal good, or a very specific religious belief. That's enough to start the process of, I'm here on this earth. I believe in love and believe in goodness. And so because of that, I deserve support.
I'm just thinking about, what the process is for a lot of people within something like a divorce situation. Once you start building the support beams, or start realizing you can have some of that around you, it grows. It starts to grow. You start to feel stronger in that process. Even a quick Google search will bring up sometimes an online support system that you can go to, or a book that you can read, or an article that you can read. I know people in those moments can sometimes feel hopeless.
They absolutely can feel hopeless. And that's a really important point that you brought up. And, if we want to look at the metaphor of the house, demolition is a part of expansion.
Mm-hmm. True.
It's the part that nobody wants to talk about, or it doesn't feel good. It's messy. It's out of control. It's scary. You don't have any guarantees. It's the first part of expansion, though. And so that's when people can feel most at risk, during the demolition phase. And so, sometimes an online community is a really important first step towards accessing support, because you can make a small step that feels doable. It doesn't feel so threatening, with a very low risk of rejection. Books are the same way, because it's really hard for a book to reject you. It's really hard.
That's true. That's very true.
It's really hard for a book to say you don't belong here.
Yeah, that's true.
It's the same thing with podcasts. So those are really great first steps for people to start to rediscover a sense of belonging and connectedness, to then risk accessing and developing stronger support beams.
What do you do with people who are in your life and they're not supportive like you would like for them to be, and how much time sometimes we spend on those people? It might be too much time.
It might be too much time, and I don't think there's a person alive who hasn't been in this situation before. And, I think how I think about this with my clients and in my personal life is, the first step is to tell yourself the truth. I want this to be different than it is. And it's not. I have to look at the evidence. People show you who they are. Situations are clear. You know what kind of experience you're in. So you have to tell yourself the truth. Yeah. And then it really is about turning towards things that have the possibility of being supportive, instead of kind of banging your head against the wall, trying to force something to be supportive that's not.
There are so many people walking different moments in their life, so it's hard to address what you might be going through in this particular moment, in this particular year. But I think what we can all relate to is that those feelings of not belonging somewhere, not having someone sit down on the bench with us, those feelings of looking for that person, or looking for that right book, and maybe just dropping you an email sometime and saying, hey, can you suggest a book?
Yes, please do.
Something like that, even.
Please do.
Don't feel hopeless. Reach out.
Absolutely. Reach out, and keep reaching out. That's another really central aspect of this that I've experienced. I experience it on a regular basis, because when you're expanding, your life in any way and you're reaching out, you're going to get told no. The door is going to close. A door isn't going to open. That is a part of the process of expansion too. Construction's not going to go as planned. So it's about continuing to go back to the drawing board time and time again until you find what you're looking for, and not over personalizing a no or a door that doesn't open as evidence that you're not worthy of support or you can't find support. In my life, in my personal life, I will say when I have had that experience, in hindsight, of course,
Right.
I have learned that it wasn't probably the best support structure in the long run for me, and that I found something that I learned a great deal more from. Even the times of isolation in my life when I primarily was relying on books or a spiritual belief system or music, I developed a very deep and abiding relationship with myself in those times. And that's what I can leverage now when I'm expanding my life in other ways and I'm not finding the support that I think fits, that I want to fit.
Yes.
That I think, oh, yes, this is a support beam. It will go here. And then it turns out, no, it's not a support beam at all. I can keep looking and keep trying to find those support beams.
That's powerful stuff and fantastic advice in those moments. I think we should do Q&A.
Let's do Q&A.
I love that we have this question at the end of this episode. I think it's a nice tie-in. This question actually came from Hannah. Hannah said that, I believe this was during your self-care show, you talked about the ABCs of figuring it out. And the first one was being honest, approaching the situation with honesty. I loved this, but sometimes I'm not very honest with myself. And that trickles down to me not being honest with the people who love me. And I also hold back sometimes in therapy. So I know that I'm not always honest with myself first, and I see that trickling down. How can I become more honest in situations and not be afraid to lean into that honesty with myself first, obviously?
Wow. Well, I think you just took a huge step towards that, Hannah.
Well, that's so true, isn't it?
Gosh, I think,
she just took a bite of the honesty apple.
Crafting that is really honest
about
where you are. So my answer to you is absorb when you are able to be honest instead of just focusing on when you're not honest. It's really important to absorb and really kind of drink in when you can do it.
Celebrate those moments.
It's even more than celebrate it. Feel what that feels like in your body. Feel how that shifts your emotions. Feel how that changes your breath. Look at and explore how that changes your day or the experience that you're in. Map it all out. That's what absorbing is, because then when you have all those markers, if you will, that you've mapped out, the next time, Hannah, that you're in a situation where it feels really risky to be honest, you have that map to lean into, and you're going to be able to access those sensations again. You're going to be able to remember that feeling, and that's what you can lean into to risk honesty again.
I love that absorbing and feeling. And because once you feel it and you want to feel that again, and you've reinforced that with yourself, that might be a lot easier the second time, third time, fourth time.
Yes, that's how we rewire. That is how we rewire whatever's going on. Really feel it. That's why you have to feel it to heal it.
Ooh. Hashtag feel it to heal it. Hashtag Integration Nation.
There you go.
Oh my goodness. That's beautiful. Hannah, thank you for that question. That was really wonderful. Drop off your questions and Allison will meet you right where you are today. I just want to find a place of peace. I want to figure out how to get grounded. I want better sleep and less stress. But I don't really know how to meditate. I don't have time to learn. How do I even begin to know what kind of meditation is right for me, for my life? Finally, you can find peace of mind through meditation that meets you right where you are right now. Skip the frustration of not knowing how or where to start with a powerful 5-week class called Meditation for Beginners. Allison Sullivan and Associates Integrative Mental Health Team in downtown Fredericksburg will show you 5 types of meditation. You'll benefit from easy instruction and meditation practice that will help you relieve stress, and you'll find plenty of time in this class for Q&A and group discussion. The group setting is comforting and welcoming and very empowering. Would you like to truly discover the quiet, the peace, the fullness of the present moment? If your answer is yes, then find your place in Allison's Meditation for Beginners class. Sign up today at allisonsintegrativehealth.org. There's a place for you. allisonsintegrativehealth.org.